In 2010, the film Unstoppable was released in theatres. Starring Denzel Washington and Chris Pine, the film tells the story of a runaway freight train set loose on its own by an operational mistake at a classification yard. The train heads south at full speed, down the main line, completely unmanned. What follows is a desperate effort to catch up to the train before it reaches a certain curve in the track above a heavily populated town, where it will derail. I have watched this movie a couple of times in the past, and it was only when revisiting the film recently that I remembered that it was inspired by a real-life event. So, after looking further into it, I thought I would share the tale with you of the real-life event known as the Crazy Eights incident. The story begins at Stanley Yard in Walbridge, Ohio. The location is a classification yard where railway cars are moved and separated onto several tracks depending on their destination. CSX, a freight railroad company operating at the yard, tasked one of its locomotive engineers with moving a string of 47 freight cars from one track to another, ready for departure on another train. The engineer used locomotive 8888 to perform the task. This is when events took motion, literally, as described by CSX officials in an ABC News report at the time. The report reads, "The incident began when an engineer climbed off the locomotive to adjust a switch," CSX officials said. The man, whose name has not been released, set two of the train's 3 braking systems correctly, but he mistakenly pulled the throttle lever instead of the one for the 3rd dynamic brake. This is a good employee with 35 years of service and a clean record. He acknowledged that he made a serious error in judgment, and he will be held accountable. The report goes on to state how the mistake sent the train on a harrowing, unmanned journey from Toledo, Ohio, to the outskirts of the town of Kenton, a distance of 66 miles or 106 kilometers. In Wikipedia's timeline of the event, it states that of the 47 freight cars the locomotive was pulling, 25 were empty, though the other 22 were fully loaded, including 2 containing thousands of gallons of molten phenol, a toxic ingredient able to cause severe chemical burns and described as exceedingly harmful when ingested. Another huge concern was, as confirmed in the ABC News report, that CSX employees knew that they had to stop the train before it reached the large hill, which may cause it to derail in the town of Kenton. The initial event occurred at around 12:35 PM, and by 12:38 authorities have been informed. At approximately 1:35 PM, a full hour after the train had begun its journey, the website colin.com states in its list of attempts made to stop the runaway, at a siding called Galatea, near milepost 34, at approximately 1:35 PM, the train dispatcher remotely operated the switch for the train to enter the siding. Previously, a portable derail had been placed on the track in attempt to derail the locomotive and thereby stop the movement. The portable derail was, however, dislodged and thrown from the track by the force of the train passing over it, and the movement of the train was not impeded. The next attempt, from Wikipedia's timeline, describes attempts by police officers to engage the train's red fuel cutoff button by shooting at it. The button would starve the engine of fuel and make it shut down. Unfortunately, this also proved unsuccessful, as the button needed to be pressed and held for several seconds before it would activate. CSX 8888 rolled on. It is stated online that it reached a speed of around 50 miles or 82 kilometers per hour on its journey. With 2 attempts to stop the train now unsuccessful, there needed to be a new plan. This came in the form of another train, Q63615, which was heading northbound. Colin.com describes how the train was directed into a siding at Dunkirk, Ohio, where the crew were instructed to uncouple their single locomotive and wait until 8888 passed. Those aboard 8392 were Jesse Knowlton, an engineer with 31 years of service, and Terry L. Forson, a conductor with about 1 year of experience. At approximately 2:05 p.m, the runaway train passed by, and they entered the main track and began a pursuit. Another locomotive was prepared farther down the line, to aid in the slowing of 8888 if necessary, but fortunately, due to the efforts of both Knowlton and Forson, it would not be required. 8392 eventually caught up with the runaway and, at a speed of around 50 miles per hour, and after succeeding in coupling their locomotive to the rear car, Knowlton gradually applied the dynamic brake, taking care not to break the train apart. As they passed over Route 31, south of Kenton, his efforts had lowered the train's speed to 12 miles per hour. Jon Hosfeld, a CSX trainmaster, was positioned at the crossing and was able to run alongside the unmanned 8888 locomotive and climb aboard. He immediately shut down the throttle, and the runaway train finally came to a stop. The time was 2:30 p.m. It was confirmed that 8888's brake shoes had all been completely burned away due to them being applied for the entire journey. Other than that, after a full mechanical inspection was performed, it was determined that all other systems were working correctly. Luckily, the incident caused no fatalities or damage. CSX has never named the 35-year-old engineer who caused the incident, nor have they commented on the disciplinary action that was taken. After the event, 8888 was rebuilt and upgraded to an SD43 model in 2015 by CSX, and still operates to this day, now under the number 4389. So that is the short but intense story of the Crazy Eights incident, and if not for the brave actions of those who worked to resolve the situation, especially Jesse Knowlton and Terry Forson, the outcome could have been a lot different and a lot deadlier.